Hello everyone. In this video, I will talk about how we can apply Redux into a product project. Before we start, let's have a look on what application we are going to do. And this application is for managing the home inventory. And this way it allows us to add a new inventory item, or we can delete any inventory item. The second way is the admin. Perform here also it allows us to add new user, and we can delete or edit any user that's in this table. The last one is the login page. So now let's go to the coding. In my first log, I already introduced you step to write a React project by using React app npm. I already have one React project that created by that npm here. In my bucket.json, you see I have Redux and React product. That means I already installed this dependency successfully in this React application. So now let's move on to component we are going to build. In this demo, we see the app have three pages: the login page, inventory, and admin page. Therefore, I created a blueprint component here for those pages. And here is the login component for login page. Sorry, this thing. As you can see, the UI render is very simple, and I use true state to handle the input for username and password here. Username I use for the test field username, and password I use for the test field password. Let's move on to main page component. In main page component, it just render the menu, and under the menu, it will navigate to the user or inventory component. Why do I have to write this main page? Let's see in this app, the inventory page and admin page, they use the same menu. So that's why I made this main page and embedded the component after the menu. So when I write these two components, I don't need to write the menu again. So this is the advantage of Redux. So next is the inventory component. In the render, we can see the table that's for display on the inventory item. And you can see in the map service function here, all the data of item, this will send to this component under the item prop. And at the form here, you can see, let's see in the inventory page, the category is not the fixed data. See, all the value, all the data of the category that's sent to this component under the category prop. So similar to the inventory component is the user component. It also render the table to display on the user, and data of user that's sent to this component under the user prop. I forget one thing. That's the state code form I use for handle all the input. Let's see, on the input here. For example, the username here, the value of it I use this type form to refer to the username. So I use this type for handling all the input of the form. So now let's see how we can apply product here. So far we have only the UI rendered by Redux, So, and in component we use some styles. Uh, However, these styles don't need to be saved to between components because they are used to handle the input. So we will not move this style into the store of Redux. So the question is what style Redux should manage in this project? So let's look at the relation of entity. Let's look at this. Let's look at this relation of this entity of the data in the app. So you can see the inventory item here. It you the user as the owner, and it's also you the carry. So therefore, in the inventory component, beside the data of the item, it has to access to the data of user and carry. On the other hand, the data of user also need to be used in admin bay and logging for authentication. So therefore, we need Redux to manage this data as the data of carry, inventory item, and users. Let's set let's set up Redux for this kind of data. So first, look at the carry the category reducer. Why I don't have the action for carry? Because carry is just used for showing all the carry at the option for the input right here. So that's why I don't have any action for add new carry or edit carry. So that's why here we only have the reducer for carry. That's just return the current carry in the system. In fact, we should have the action for get for fetch all the carry from the server or database. But this application we don't use any database management tool, so that's why I declare some carry here. Let's look at the item data set for in Redux. So in the item we just have two actions, the active item and delete item. In each action I will send the payload as that is the item that will be used to add into the current state in the store. So let's see what reducer will do with the action. So if the action is the add item, it will, you see right here, it will use the concat function to add the payload. Right here, the payload is the the payload of the action is the new item. Similar to add item, it will if we in the user if we use the filter subgroup function to like eliminate the item that in the payload from the current state item state. Index reducer it's not only manage the item, it also have the sequence ID. It's like the sequence ID for in the SQL is will auto increase by 1 when we add a new item. So now let's move on the user that we set up in Redux. In user we have let's see in user we have delete a user, edit a user, and add a new user. So that's why we have three actions here. In addition, we have two more actions for login and logout. Right here, let's look at in the reducer. we have in this reducer we will manage the list of the user, and one state for keep track the current login user. So for the add user, we have we will it's similar to the inventory reducer. If you add new user under the payload, and edit user, if we check the user, if user is matched with the user in the current state, it will update the value of the user. And delete also, it will eliminate the user that's marked with the payload here from the current state. And for the one I want to talk here is the login and logout. So for the login and logout, for login, if you check if the payload that's sent by login is marked with the user with any user in and backwards in the current state, so it will return the new current log with the username that's in the payload. If not, it will return null. Also for logout, it will set the null for the current login user. That's all the step we set up for Redux. So now let's see how we can use them into Redux. So for log, actually let's see first admin is the app. No, sorry, it's the app component. So the app component, I will I will connect. That's the function in the function in the Redux. That will map the in this one it will map the function map to prop to the app. In map to prop function, the duty of this map to prop function is to map the prop of this component to the store in the Redux. So install in the Redux, I will call this is the store in the Redux. I will call the user reducer, the store that store in the user reducer. It's called user store, and in the user store, let's expand it. In the user store, let's see, in the user store we have right. Sorry. Maybe. Let's see. In the user store we have authentication here. So in the user we have authentication, and we call the current log. We in the render of the app component, we will check if the current log is null. If we go to the login by, if not, if we go direct to the main by. So in the login by, we don't need to get in the login by, we don't need to get to access to the store. We just we just want to use the login action to send the action to the Redux to check if the username and password is matched with the you see in the map, this map to rock, I have the function. I have the function to send the authentication. It means to this action to check if the payload is marked with any the password and the username in the store, and if we return the approved value for current login user. So the map this back to prop, if we map this function to this prop, so in this component I will use this prop as a function, and in this function I pass the authentication is the username and password here. Also, I have to use the connect this map, this path to route to this component. For the main base component, I don't need to. We don't need to access to any style in the store. So we just need the handle the logout menu option in the menu here. So I will have the map this. So that's why I will have the map this box to route to send to the Redux to update the state of the current login user to null. So in this one, I have the prop called logout, and it is the function to like for this part the logout function to the producer. So that's why in this component, I can use this as the function. So let's go to inventory component. So in the name inventory component, I need to access to the state in the router to get all the data um, of the inventory item and the carry and user. So that's why I have the map state rock here. Also, I have to send the action to update the inventory or add inventory or delete inventory. So that's why I have the map dispatch to rock. In the true function, in map state rock, I have this rock that will access to the store of product, then access to the store in the producer and get the upgrade rate stay in the producer. Use it right here. And for map this back to rock, I have the block to map with the function that call the dispatch to dispatch the action add item and delete item to the product for update the state in store of the product. Yeah, and it's similar for user too. Um, in user, I also have both map state to rock and map dispatch to rock to display on the user and also use for edit user and delete user. That's all for the step to use and apply React into a React application. So hopefully it can helpful. Thank you.